चलते हैं सीधे समृद्ध भारत फाउंडेशन के एक कार्यक्रम में जहां विजन फॉर अ नेशन किताब का लोकार्पण किया जा रहा है। इस किताब का संपादन आकाश सिंह राठौर और आशीष नंदी।
Shri P. Chidambaram ji, former Union Minister, a distinguished contributor of this volume and General Secretary of CPIM, Shri Sitaram Yejuri ji, trustees of Samriddh Bharat Foundation, the editors of today's volume, Professor Ashish Nandi and Professor Akash Singh Rathore, and Ms. Millie Aishwarya from our publisher, Penguin Random House, India. Distinguished guests, friends from media, ladies and gentlemen. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to the launch of first volume, Vision for the Nation. This is first of the 14 volumes, which are collectively called Rethinking India, and each volume consists of 10 innovative ideas to address structural problems facing India. I would also welcome Shri Shashi Tharoor ji, who is also the distinguished contributor to the volume. I want to congratulate the editors of Rethinking India series, Professor Mridula Mukherjee, Dr. Saida Hamid, Professor Akash Singh Rathore, and my colleague in Samriddh Bharat Foundation, Pushparaj Deshpande, and all the volume editors of 14 volumes for the hard work and the commitment. I want to thank the Penguin team led by Ms. Millie for their support in bringing out this collection of ideas contributed by nearly 140 distinguished thinkers, philosophers, and leaders of India. These volumes are characterized by their commitment to India's constitutional values. The series complements the ongoing work being done by Samriddh Bharat Foundation at various levels. The foundation is active at the grassroots, making efforts to shape public discourse. We have been working with secular parties all over India on policy issues, and we are also working with the Indian diaspora abroad. The series is being published at a very difficult time. These are strange times when being anti-intellect is considered an achievement, when mediocrity is the flavor of public discourse, when facts and dialectics are a casualty, and uninformed or even fake is a celebrity. So it is important for the intellect to reassert. It is important to re-energize the democratic liberal agenda and rebuild a larger consensus in its favor. That only can be the guarantee for stability and prosperity of any society anywhere in the world and for maintaining the dignity of every individual. This is what Samriddh Bharat Foundation aims to do, and we seek your partnership in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurdeep ji, for contextualizing the normative and ideological work that Samriddh Bharat is at the forefront of. It is towards this end that we have gathered over 140 of India's foremost academics, activists, and policymakers across party lines for the Rethinking India volumes. May I now ask Millie Aishwarya, the publisher of eBury Publishing, Vintage Publishing, and Penguin Random House India, to speak about this joint endeavor in which they have been so supportive.
Thank you, Pushparaj. Good evening, everybody. Our distinguished guests, panelists, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Penguin Random House India, I'd like to welcome you all to the launch of the first book and a very important book in the Rethinking India series that we're publishing in collaboration with the Samriddh Bharat Foundation. Vision for a Nation, edited by Ashish Nandi and Akash Singh Rathore. I think it's a perfect book to launch the series with. The book aims to initiate a dialogue on the key questions of our times. It brings together India's foremost intellectuals, academics, activists, technocrats, professionals, and policymakers to offer an in-depth exploration of these issues, deriving from their long-standing work, experience, and unflinching commitment to the collective idea of India. Vision for a Nation promotes the idea of a plural, inclusive, just, equitable, and prosperous India, committed to individual dignity as a foundation of the unity, vibrancy of the nation. I'd like to thank our accomplished contributors, our volume editors of the book. The book would not have been possible without all of you. And of course, our esteemed panelists and guests for this evening. I hope you all enjoy reading the book and share your valuable feedback with us. Have a great evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Millie, for your remarks and for supporting the Rethinking India series in these truly unprecedented times. May I now request Dr. Shashi Tharoor, the former Minister of State for External Affairs and HRD, and also a contributor to the first volume, to give us the benefit of his insights. Sir.
Honorable former Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh, Honorable former Vice President Shri Hamid Ansari, Mr. Chidambaram, Mr. Yechuri, my good friends Professor Ashish Nandi and Professor Rathore, and of course Ms. Acharya from Penguin, ladies and gentlemen, friends. It's an extremely important initiative that we're here to celebrate that's been undertaken by the Samruddha Bharat Foundation. What we are trying, I think, in the course of this series of volumes to accomplish is something that many Indians need, which is a sharper ideological definition of the values that have sustained this country since independence 72 years ago and which were taken for granted by too many of us for too long. In fact, it's impressive that the series editors, who are both scholars of considerable distinction from different fields, have actually planned 14 volumes and are assembling 140 academics, activists, policymakers to express their views on the issues here. We all know what's happening in the country. I won't belabor what every one of you, I'm sure, sees on your television screens, reads in your newspapers, and is anguished about in your own conversations. A fundamental assault on the foundational ideas of our freedom and of our republic is going on. And the need, the moral urgency of creating a positive and constructive alternative paradigm could not possibly be greater. If ordinary Indians have been seduced, cudgeled into supporting the ruling party, it becomes indispensable to re-articulate our values and what we believe in, the ideas we have held and the ideas we've retained from the freedom struggle, and of course to convey them to people, because when they have that feeling of recognition that yes, these people are talking about things that we too believe in, that is when they will once again return to support the forces that support a progressive India, an inclusive India. The essays in the book, of course, are offering very different but compatible visions of this. When I was growing up in India, unity in diversity was the most hallowed of our self-defining cliches. It's time, I think, to give it new content. And the book itself, in many ways, seeks to produce that unity out of diverse voices and diverse perspectives in a way that's very different from what the present government prefers, which is not really unity, but uniformity in the name of unity. I once again want to thank Gurdeep Sapal, the executive trustee here, Pushparaj Deshpande, the managing trustee, and the two volume editors for their tremendous initiative in putting this forward. This is going to be the first volume, the keystone of the arch, and many more will follow. But I certainly hope that all of you present will delve into these essays, read the book, and participate in the project of redefining and re-articulating an idea of India that is truly worth defending. Thank you very much, and Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for your insightful remarks. Your words have and continue to inspire many across India. Could I request Sitaram, sir, who has been so encouraging of Samruddha Bharat as a whole, to kindly enlighten us with your remarks. Sir.
The Honorable former Vice President of India, Dr. Hamid Ansari, the Honorable Prime Minister, Shri Manmohan Singh Ji, P. Chidambaram, former Finance Minister, Shashi Tharoor, also a good friend of mine, though junior in college, but nevertheless in the Parliament, Professor Nandi and Professor Rathore, and the members of the Samruddh Bharat Foundation, the trustees, and the distinguished audience that is here. I think this is an extremely timely venture that the Samruddh Bharat Foundation has undertaken. And it's not an easy job to bring together 140 thinkers, the best of the minds together, to discuss this issue of the vision for India. And that vision for India, today we are at a defining point. The biblical age span of 70, which is what our republic is today, we are at a defining moment on what will be the future of this republic. And I think the energy that has come out with the youngsters today is a very redeeming factor, that the symbols of nationalism, so to speak, the Indian flag, the preamble of the Constitution, and the singing of the national anthem, these have become the standard slogans that are being raised in this movement that is there in the country today. And I think this will define which way we shall move forward. But this, in a sense, is also a reflection or a continuation of the battle between three visions that emerged during our struggle for freedom and defining what India is all about. One, and the mainstream vision during our freedom struggle, was of course led by the then Congress, which recognized, and all three were born in the decade of the 1920s, which recognized that a country of such diversity and such plurality can never remain united unless there is a political structure that is founded on secular democracy. The other, to which I belong to, that stream, though I was born much later, after the Constitution was adopted, was the one that said, yes, absolutely correct, but it has to move forward. The political independence we gain must be converted into the economic independence of our people and for social justice, and that will mean a march, continuing march towards socialist objectives. The third was an antagonistic vision that had a twin expression, which defined India, or sought to define India, on the basis of the religious affiliation of its people. And the twin that was born was that of the concept of an Islamic state and the Hindu Rashtra. And this battle between these three visions has been continuing for this century. And today we have reached a defining point of how the future of India will be shaped on the basis of which vision. And that is why I think this is a very, very important initiative and an effort that is being made. And these volumes should contribute to this churning that is taking place today in the country. Because what is required is actually a new paradigm through which these values are now communicated to our youngsters. And this paradigm and the synergy that we see now, which has to be further strengthened, that synergy will have to build around this new manner in which we can communicate. And that is very important. And for that, I think these volumes will play a very important role in contributing to this churning that is currently taking place. There'll be many battles, of course, but eventually the battle is that of what this idea of India is all about. It is an inclusive concept. What we have today is the battle with the exclusionist concept. Plurality of this sort in India can only be strengthened by strengthening the bonds of commonality that run through our diversity. Any effort to try and impose a uniformity over this diversity will lead to the implosion of this country. And that is the defining moment where we are today. And that is why I think I would like to congratulate the entire trustees of the Samruddh Bharat, Gurdeep Sapal, and a young friend who's taken this entire initiative in getting all this organized, the editors, of course, and of course the publisher, the Penguin, for having published this volume and the subsequent ones, and wish all of, requesting or appealing to all of you that whether you like it or not, we are part of this current churning. We have to take a position. Only appealing to you to take a position, and hope this series and these contributions will help in the process of at least shaping, if not crystallizing, a point of view on what the idea of India should be, and we need to preserve it today. We owe it to the posterity, we owe it to our country, and I'm sure you'll all join this current battles that are going on. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words of wisdom. We are extremely fortunate to have worked with you for this volume and hope to solicit your continued support in the future. Given the socio-economic turmoil India has witnessed in the last few years, I'm sure everyone here and the country at large is eagerly anticipating the remarks of the former Finance and Home Minister. It is therefore my privilege to request Chidambaram sir to deliver the keynote address. Sir.
Respected Shri Hamid Ansari Saab, respected Dr. Manmohan Singh Ji, Shashi Tharoor, Sitaram Yechuri, other panelists, trustees of the Samruddh Bharat Foundation, distinguished guests, friends. I find that I was given an advance copy of a book. I wanted to follow in the footsteps of Shashi and speak generally, but having received an advance copy of a book, I'm afraid I have to either confess that I have not read the book, or I have read the book and I will make certain comments on the book. This is not your ordinary book. You cannot read it when you have nothing else to do. You have to read it when you can devote the time to read it. When you can keep aside all thoughts, all distractions, and pay attention to some of the most fundamental issues raised in the book. Firstly, this volume is one of 14 volumes. It's an ambitious project. It perhaps will take many months or many years, and I'm proud that we will have 150 authors of great distinction contributing to the central idea of rethinking India. The senior editors say, in order to further disseminate these ideas, both to kickstart a national dialogue and to further build a consensus on them, we are bringing out this set of 14 volumes highlighting innovative ideas that seek to deepen and further the promise of India. In a sense, we must be unhappy why we have to rethink India after 70 years of the Constitution. I can understand reimagining India, but if we are pushed to rethinking India, it means that someone has struck or is pretty close to striking at the roots of our foundation of this country. I sincerely hope I'm wrong, but if people are ready to strike at the very root, at the very foundation of what we have constructed as the Indian Republic 70 years ago, and have tried to nurture it in the last 70 years. Perhaps the publishers, the editors, and the authors felt that the situation was so grave, it is no longer enough to reimagine India, it's no longer enough to remake India, it's no longer enough to rebuild India, it's no longer enough to renew our promise which we made to ourselves 70 years ago, but the time has come to rethink India. Now, what is this new thinking? Some of these essays question ideas that you and I have accepted for long. For example, those of you who have read *Sapiens* know that the sapien who's the human being today is no more than about 7,000 or 8,000 years ago. The author of one essay says, geological research places the formation of the Himalayas 50 million years ago. Genomic research has accepted that the spread of the original population in India was from the peninsula south, where Sitaram and I come from and Sashi comes from, to the west and north. Plant genetics has determined that agricultural practices began spreading from Iran to what is now India some 9,000 years before our time. Archaeology takes us back 5,000 years to trace the roots of our civilization. Linguistic and literary history have succeeded in tracking our path back to a period spanning only 4,000 years. History, based as verifiable evidence, has pieced together in India of the last 2,700 years. Sashi adds in his essay something which is obvious but it didn't strike me. Christianity arrived on Indian soil with St. Thomas the Apostle, who came to the Kerala coast sometime before 52 Christian era and was welcomed on shore by a flute-playing Jewish girl. He made many converts, so there are Indians today whose ancestors were Christian. Up to that is obvious. The rest is true but not very obvious. Well before any Europeans discovered Christianity. Well before Americans discovered Christianity. So in a sense, India is a Christian nation before Europe became a Christian continent and America became a Christian nation. Thank you for highlighting this point. Now what are we told? They are dragging us back to an age which may or may not have existed. That's why it's called a myth. That's why the stories around it are called mythology. And they're asking us to imagine that we will recreate that age, where our cultural and literary history is only 2,700 years old. It is in this 2,700s that we have developed the ideas that make a modern democracy. It doesn't go back beyond 2,700 years. Maybe more archaeological evidence may take it back another 1,000 years, but surely it will not go back more than 4,000 years. In these 3,000 or 4,000 years, the human race has built many institutions, many structures. The most important, I think, is democracy. And we have built those structures by building them on the foundations of some very seminal and fundamental ideas. One of the most fundamental ideas of a modern democracy is secularism. There are several essays which debate what secularism is, what secularization is. I think each one of you should get a copy of the book and spend time reading and understanding it. These are very complex issues that are being debated very profoundly. That secularism is under challenge. That secularism is under challenge to a point where citizenship has become an object of attack and challenge. We've had debates on secularism in the last 20, 30, 40 years. But we have reached a point where the debate on secularism has shifted to a debate on who is a citizen of India. Somehow these two issues have been conflated. If you are secular today, there are people who will call you anti-national. If you are secular today, they will call you are speaking the language of Pakistan. If you're secular, your patriotism is in question. And many of these people will also have their citizenship questioned in course of time. That is the point of danger at which we have seemed to have arrived in the last few years. Now let's turn to citizenship, and I just want to spend a couple of minutes. There's a very interesting essay on how, while we all think we are full citizens, not all of us are full citizens. Our citizenship has been diminished by a number of things. For example, the author says, there are a certain number of languages in the schedule to the Constitution. And then he comments, when we look at the plight of communities that do not speak any of the scheduled languages as their mother tongues, and we note that the state has been uninterested in creating access to education for them in their own languages, their linguistic citizenship is compromised. Those who fail to understand the intricacies of law courts automatically become legal non-citizens. Those who have bank accounts on Aadhaar cards of some degree of genuine economic citizen status, those who do not lose out a part of economic citizenship. In the digital world, if internet is denied to you for 7 months, you are diminished as a digital citizen. For I think these essays open up our minds to various aspects of citizenship and the various nuances of citizenship and how each one could, in one way or other, be a diminished citizen. But if citizenship is taken away from millions of people, the simple political citizenship is taken away from millions of people, how diminished they will become. I think there are serious concerns, and these concerns have been addressed in these essays, and I urge you to read them. Finally, there's one essay which encapsulates the point of view of those who are propagating the Hindu Rashtra and Hindutva. And it says, who is Hindu, which was reiterated and perversely materialized in Golwalkar's We or Nationhood Defined. It's based on 5 specific categories: language, race, religion, territory, and culture. What the founding fathers of India did, I believe they tried to do, Jawaharlal Nehru and Dr. Ambedkar and others, was to build a concept of citizenship that will be based on the Constitution, a constitutional citizenship, rather than a citizenship that is based on language, race, religion, territory, and culture. The essay goes on to argue that each one of these are incomplete ideas, and I won't dwell on them. But what is happening today is there's a reassertion that it's only when you speak a particular language or you speak one of the languages belonging to that family, or you belong to a race, or you belong to a religion, or you practice a particular culture, you will be an Indian citizen. If this definition is applied, many of us will cease to be Indian citizens. Many of us will become diminished citizens, and a large number may even become non-citizens. So I think we have to understand, as long as this was simply a theoretical idea propagated by Savarkar and Golwalkar, we could debate it and leave the debate with a smile on our face. But when this has become a political project today, and these ideas are embodied in a political project, and the state is willing to put its power and resources and authority and might behind taking this political project forward, I think we should seriously worry what will happen to the concept of a constitutional citizenship devised by Dr. Ambedkar, Jawaharlal Nehru, and others. Finally, there's one essay which says why secularism is important. Secularism is an attempt to control politicized religion from taking over the state. Today, a politicized religion has almost taken over the state. It has almost taken over all the institutions. Many institutions have been captured by those who subscribe to this politicized religion. If you don't belong to that religion, even if you belong to that religion, but if you don't subscribe to the politicization of that religion, you have no place in many institutions of India today. Finally, an essay argues for constitutional morality. I would urge you to read that. The one sentence that I want to leave you with is the contrast between what Gandhiji said and did and what Hitler did. Both were more or less contemporaries. Hitler was about 15 or 20 years younger, but the period overlapped. It says, it was a time when Gandhi came up with his idea of civil disobedience as a statement of one's moral courage in the face of injustice. Civil disobedience as a statement of one's moral courage in the face of injustice. And I'm very proud that people who we thought will not come out of their homes, will not come out to the streets, will not brave the cold and the water cannons and the lathis and even the bullets, are now actually practicing the civil disobedience of Gandhiji. On the contrary, Hitler's view was demanding complete obedience towards the supreme leader. We have examples today in India, in Delhi, of civil disobedience as a statement of one's moral courage against injustice. We have also examples of people demanding complete obedience to the supreme leader. I'll leave that thought with you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your thought-provoking and incisive remarks. I am confident that your words will resonate with millions of Indians who are anxious, desperate even, for a positive and constructive alternate paradigm. Thank you also for sparing time from your hectic schedule to be here today. We will now be launching Samruddha Bharat Foundation and Penguin India's first volume in the Rethinking India series. Could I request the other two series editors of the volume, Professor Mridula Mukherjee and Dr. Saida Hamid, to join us on stage to launch the volume. Ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.